I'm making a little bit more resources on the teeth. So if I can just show you here.
Or there's a really good YouTube series that you can find.
Yeah. Actually, let's plug that in as well. So Rachel, I'm sure a lot of you. Rachel will be making YouTube videos, so you can check those out. And I'll be sending some more resources in the
like and subscribe.
I'm in the study club group chat, so I have access there, and I'll be sending something similar, very similar to this.
Sorry.
This is a canine right there, right? There's hardly any of the cusp left. They won't give you teeth like this. It's going to be pretty straightforward teeth. There might be one or two a little bit tricky in them, obviously, because every year people have been doing better and better at tooth morphology, to the point that it's looking to them like it's becoming a bit too easy. So they don't mind every now and then slipping it two slightly questionable ones in there, but nothing that you can't afford to mess or mix up, mistake it. Because this thing, out of those 5 things that I say you need to choose for every tooth, even if you're like, if you're really unsure if it's right or left, I'm pretty sure you can tell if it's adult or baby, or if it's like left or right. You know, there's so many other things that you can say about that tooth. So don't be too don't beat yourself up if you get to a tooth and, for example, you can't decide if it's right or left, or if it's like, do you know what I mean? It's okay. You can make a mistake here. You can still easily get 4 points for that tooth, and basically get away with it. So I'll be going over the main features, the main distinguishing features of every single tooth. We'll start with the adult dentition first, because in my opinion, if you know the adult dentition properly, the deciduous ones are pretty much exactly the same as the adult dentition in terms of the features we're looking for, with the only difference being the baby first molars, upper and lower, right? Those are the only teeth that we don't see in the adult dentition, which makes it easy for you guys. Why? Because if you get to a station and you know for a fact that's a baby tooth you're staring at, so they're pretty easy to tell apart, because they're tiny and they're usually plastic. I don't think they'll give you real baby teeth. They might, but they're tiny and they're really cute. You look at them, there's no mistaking that they're baby teeth, right? As soon as you see that it's a baby tooth, but you don't recognize the tooth, that's the first molar. If you don't recognize it, it's the first molar. Because other teeth in but obviously that relies on you knowing your adult dentition pretty well, right? But if you don't recognize it, because that's the only weird one that has, not a standard shape that you see in your upper molar. We'll go over what they look over here. So as you can see, that's central incisor, lateral incisor, canine. First molar, second molar, first adult molar, second adult molar, right? They come through because this kid, I think, must have been about 7, 8 maybe years. We were discussing that earlier. But the age is another thing that has never been tested in tooth morphology, historically speaking. Not that I know of. I don't think they'll just include it randomly this year. But I haven't seen the paper or the teeth, so I don't know. But age of the teeth is something you guys need to know for your summative coming up. They'll definitely ask quite a few questions on. They'll show you a tooth or I think X-ray or maybe a part of a jaw, and then they say, okay, well, how old do you think this person is, right? And then obviously you need to know about your eruption dates to guesstimate the age of that person. But for tooth morphology, they literally just want you to know what tooth is what. That's all there is to it. Okay? Go.
Can they ask you to identify third molars or not?
Third molars, historically, again, that's never been asked, because third molars are so far back and they're so varied in morphology that they can't, again, then within themselves, they can't really get to agree where it is, because the roots are usually kind of fused and the fissure pattern is really messed up, and they don't stress on it much, and they haven't tested, to my knowledge, ever. And so if you're getting to a tooth and it definitely looks like a wisdom tooth, maybe have a second look around it. It could be definitely a third molar, who knows? But the third molars are, they don't really stress on them. There shouldn't be much of them in the exam. Again, they might change it for you guys, so double check with the coursework, but I don't think you'll do this. Righty then, so we'll start with the upper adult dentition, and we'll work our way one by one till we get to tooth number 7, right? So again, this talk is not to start going every single detail. I'll just give you the main key features about every tooth that makes it be able to be distinguished from other teeth, right? So in my opinion, the two of the easiest teeth to recognize in the dentition are mandibular first molar, the classic one with 5 cusps, with there's no mistake in that one, and there's also no mistaking a central incisor. Like as soon as you see it, you can pretty much tell. Left to right, as you might have seen in the videos by David Whitaker, is that this side of it is a little bit more rounded, so that's the distal side, okay? And the mesial side is a lot more 90-degree shape, kind of like that, right? And anything that I talk about on this side of the tooth would be applicable to that side. It's a mirror image, right? And then the other thing that you guys need to know with regards to distinguishing between the first and second incisors, or central and lateral incisors, is just the idea of two main differences that they have. First, the roots. The ratio of crown to roots is a bit different. With central incisors, is almost 1-to-1, right? So if this is the crown of the tooth, I'm not brilliant at drawing, but if this is the crown, the roots would be kind of like that. You see how this and this are almost the same height? Right, so that's the central incisor. For a lateral incisor, the ratio, so that's 1-to-1, the ratio would be more like 1-to-2, right? So the root appears a little bit longer than the crown would be, because they give you single teeth in little pots, right? And you have like about a minute to decide those 5 things about the tooth, and then you put it there, and then you wait for the ridiculous horn or whatever it is, and then you move to the next station, and then there's like, I think, a 10-second gap where you're not allowed to touch the tooth, and then there's another horn. You know that it's upper, but you're just struggling between it being lateral or central. You just have a look at the ratio of the crown to root, right? And that gives you the idea. Also, lateral incisors are just a little bit smoother on the features. They're not as harshly defined as on the central. And one last thing that you might be able to spot is that the lateral incisors have a little developmental pit here on the palatal side that the central incisors don't usually have. All right, moving on to the canine, right? With the canines, I bring in the lower canines as well, because they don't have first or second canine. The only thing you guys need to worry about is left or right and up and down, right? And whether it's baby or not, we'll discuss that when we get to the baby teeth. But with the canines, the idea, how to distinguish upper from lower, I think that's the most important one, because once you distinguish that, you can tell left or right pretty easily after that, right? Upper canines, there's 2 main differences that the upper canines have with the lower canines, right? First, and the most important one, is that the cingulum, you all know what the cingulum is? Yeah. Right? Is on the palatal side, that little bulge, and the skull, it's been worn so much that you can barely see anything. But this was actually a person they took an impression of, and it has it's got some wear, so it's not perfect when it comes to showing the cingulum. Just zoom in a little bit. Right? But the idea is that this area right here, that's the cingulum, right? This is more pronounced and more bulgy on the upper canines than lower canines, okay? Lower canines are a bit more smooth. So if you have a look here, do you see, that's a canine. Do you see how just it goes down? It's almost non-existent. Do you see it? Right? So it almost just slopes down. Again, you'll find that it's got the point, again, this has been worn a little bit, so you can see that the cusp has become a little bit flat, right? But this must have been pointy when it was being developed, right? It's just after grinding and the bite has worn it down a bit. But the teeth that they will give you would most likely, I would say most definitely, have a pointy bit to them. Some of them might be worn, but still. You can see that the cingulum here, you can almost not see it because it just goes straight down on the lingual side, right? Whereas with the uppers, it's a bit more pronounced. That's the first difference that they have, the cingulum. Upper ones have a larger cingulum than the lower one. second difference that they have is that if you have a look at ideal occlusion, by occlusion I mean the bite, when the teeth come together, right? The upper teeth come over the lower teeth, right? It's really important you guys understand this, because when you understand this is the ideal bite, then a lot more other stuff starts to make sense. This is the ideal bite. Do you see how the upper teeth come over the lower teeth, right? If you have a look at this on the buccal side, they're a bit more upwards than the lower teeth, right? So the idea is that the upper canine comes over the lower canine, right? So again, the main first difference was the singular. Second one is the curvature of the tooth, right? So if you have a look at the tooth on its own, right? Upper canines are a little bit more straight. When you go from root to the tip of the cusp, they're a bit more straight than the lower ones. The lower ones are curved inwards a little bit more. So if you have a look at the tip of the root and the tip of the cusp, they're a bit more curved. Why is that? To allow the upper to come over them like that, right? If you look at them from the side, they will follow a less of a curvature, right? Less of a curvature than the lower ones coming up. The tip of the root of the lower ones curves inwards a lot more. So if I just show you on this side, upper canines follow this kind of line, roughly, right? And the lower ones follow a more curved distance. You see how this is a bit more curved than the upper ones, right? So if you have the canine and you're just looking at the canine, how can you tell left from right, you might ask, is that the tip of the cusp should be pointing towards the mesial side, okay? That's how you can tell from left to right. For this model that you guys did your tooth waxing on, and I actually get this one from Cameron without any teeth being cut, you have the tip of the cusp pointing slightly distally because they've been worn, right? So as the person was chewing on God knows what, they started to wear this cusp. You can see it's gone a little bit flat, right? So now that it appears that it's pointing distally, whereas morphologically speaking, ideally, it should be pointing mesially. The other thing that makes it very easy, this is like a general rule of thumb for every single tooth, pretty much, right? The roots curve distally. Have a look at the ends of the roots. Wherever they're pointing, that should be theoretically the distal side of the tooth, right? There are some teeth, about maybe 5%, I'd say, maybe less, of the teeth that have their roots. Again, this is anatomy, so obviously there will be anomalies here and there. That have the tip of the roots pointing mesially, but they're really rare, and usually they don't really give it in the exam because it would confuse a lot of people. You know, if it's adult or deciduous, just by the sheer size of it. If it's really tiny, it has to be. All right. First, premolars. Again, with regards to premolars, we go together with the lower one just to make sure that the understanding is there. With regards to premolars, the only premolar that has two roots is the first premolar maxillary. Okay? So upper first premolar has two roots. Any other ones have one root. Okay? So if you see the tooth, and it looks like a premolar, so it's not small enough for an incisor or a canine, and it's not large enough for a molar, and it looks adult, and it's got two roots, that's definitely an upper first premolar. Upper. Okay? If it's got a single root, again, it's fine, because you have a look at the cusps, right? If you have a look at the cusps are more similarly heighted. So if you have a look here, the height of the cusp are a lot more closer to each other. Whereas with the lower dentition, the buccal cusps are a lot higher than the lingual cusps, right? That's the main difference that they have in terms of the crown structure, right? So again, you have a look at the tooth, the crown of it. If the cusps are similarly heighted, they're upper. If the difference in the height is a bit more, so that the buccal is more obvious, right, then they're lower. And with the lower ones, if you look at the tooth occlusally, it's a lot more round, right, like that. Whereas the upper teeth, if you look at them occlusally, they're a bit more oval, right? Lower ones have a lot of a difference between the heights of the cusps, but the upper ones don't have as much. Now, how can you tell the first premolar left or right of it? You just look at the canine fossa. You know that the size with the canine fossa is the mesial, right? Because that indentation would have been made by the canine. Go on.
I don't get it. Like, I look at teeth and I just can't see this fossa. It all looks the same.
Here's the thing. It's all right. Even if you don't see the fossa, there's another way to be able to tell right from left, right? And that's by looking at the palatal cusp. You see how the palatal cusp points mesially, very obviously, right?
Okay.
And
For upper and lower.
There is no mistaking the palatal cusp from the buccal cusp, right? Because if you have a look at them, the palatal cusp is a little bit shorter than the buccal cusp, and if you have a look at any sort of dentition, it's the outside cusp are usually covering the inside cusp, so they have to be a bit taller than the inside cusp. By inside, I mean the palatal or the lingual. Okay, so once you can definitely tell which side is buccal, which side is lingual, which side is palatal. The palatal side of it has the cusp pointing very obviously towards the mesial side. That's another way you can tell where the canine fossa should be, or which side should be the mesial. Okay? And again, because it has two roots, you know that it's the first premolar. Again, but then you move on to the second one, and with the second one, if it's got a single root, but it looks like a first premolar, it's a second premolar, because it's got a single root, right? Again, you can tell right from left by where the tip of the cusp would be pointing. It usually points towards the mesial side, but with the premolars, second premolars, it does get a bit confusing because some people have, there's more anomalies out there. So I would say for the second premolars, just go with the curvature of the roots, right? Wherever it's pointing, that should be the distal side. Okay? Because otherwise, we can go into a lot more detail of the occlusal, the fissure pattern, and how it looks, and which cusp should be pointing where, but you don't need to know that because you have access to the root. You can see the root. If you can see the root, you just have a look which side is pointing. That side, granted, you have a look at the crown as well. You hold it in the right position, and then once you have it in the right position, you know that, if I just hold this tooth, for example, right? And I know for a fact that this side is the palatal side, then I just look at the curvature of the root. If it's pointing this way, it's right. If it's pointing this way, it's left. Okay? So just hold the tooth with either of your fingers being on the palatal and the buccal side, and then you have a look at the curvature of the root. So that would be the first premolar and the second premolar of the upper done. With the lower one, they both have single roots, but the difference between them is this. The first premolar has two very clear cusps, right? One large one on the outside, one really small one on the inside, or on the lingual side, if you will. And that's it. There's no ridge of tiny cusps, right? Whereas with the second one, there's one clear buccal cusp on the outside, but on the inside there is a tiny cusp, and there's like either one or a ridge of tiny little cusp around it, right? So if you're having a look at the two premolars, right? If you're having a look at one of them and you're not sure if it's a first or a second, right? You have a look at the number of cusps they have. If it has two cusps very clearly, and it doesn't have any other cusp, it's just two, then it's the first premolar, lower, okay? If it has one cusp on the buccal side and a number of questionable cusps on the lingual side, then that is a second premolar. Does that make sense? Right? So they used to call it a ridge of retarded cusp, so I don't really like that. But it's a ridge of tiny cusps with a one main one on the mesial side, and then a few couple on the outside. All good? Again, if you look at the curvature of the root, you'll be able to tell right from left. Okay? And that would be it for the premolars on the upper and the lower.
Wait, so on the second premolar, can you ever get just two cusps? Because then how do you tell that from the first premolar?
That's usually, if you get two cusps, they will count it as the first premolar, as a clinical tutor did back when I was doing my tooth setting, that you guys will do, I think, in a few years' time. So when you collect a lot of teeth, you take it there, and then they try to make this sort of jaw out for you, right? So even though I was in doubt, I didn't know, I had a similar tooth to that, right, basically. Because I thought it looked like it had a ridge of cusp way back in the day, but some of it had been worn, so I was a bit like, is it first or second? And then the clinical tutor told me that if it now looks like it clearly has two cusps, you can count it as a first premolar because anatomically speaking, they don't make that much of a difference in the mouth, right?
Okay.
So you can even have some people having their teeth a little bit rotated a different way in terms of like orthodontics, for example, right?
Yeah.
If teeth have been misplaced or they've come out the wrong way, they don't try to restructure the whole jaw to get them in the right position, right? Because occlusion fixes itself as you carry on. But in the exam, they don't give you one that
Has two cusps.
they will give you one that has two cusps, but that would be the first premolar.
Oh, okay, so they'll give you a second.
If it had, yeah, if back in the day it used to have a ridge of retarded cusp,
Yeah.
but now it looks like it has two, you're free to count it as the first premolar. Because again, if your tutor tells me that that's okay, then that must be. Even though morally I don't think it's right. But anyway, with regards to premolars, that's pretty much it. That's how you can tell from right from left by looking at the curvature of the crowns. On the lower teeth, this is something quite important. But if you have a look at the two next to each other, generally speaking, for the upper teeth, the palatal side has more of a bulge or more of a curve to it, right? And the buccal cusp is a bit more straight, coming straight down. And it kind of makes sense because it's coming over the lower teeth, right? Lower teeth because they have to curve inwards. On the buccal surface, they're a bit more rounded, and on the lingual surface, they're a bit more straight. Okay? Because that's where the tongue is, right? So if you have a look here, you can see that when this is flat on the surface, you can see more of the buccal side than the lingual side because this has more of a roundness to it. There's more of a bulgy, curve to it. Whereas on the lingual side, it's a bit more vertical and straight. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Whereas in the upper, if you have a look at these two molars, they're both first molars, right? But you can see that the palatal side has clearly got, you can see more of it because it's got more of a roundness to it. Because when they come together, the inside, the palatal side goes in the middle of the lower teeth, and the outside of it comes over, right? So it kind of makes sense for the lower teeth to have the buccal sides curved inwards, and for the upper teeth to have them come straight down. Does that make sense? Right? So if you're having your teeth like this coming together, the outside of the upper teeth are more straight, but the outside of the lower teeth are a bit more curved because they're going inside the upper teeth. Does that make sense? Right? So if you're having a look at a single tooth, right, and you're trying to decide, for example, this is a very good example, the second molars, right? We'll come to the first molar. The first molar is a classic tooth. You can't mistake it. It's got 5 cusps, 3 cusps on the buccal side, 2 cusps on the lingual side. No mistaking that one. That's as soon as you see it, you can tell that it's a first molar, right? It's got 2 roots. They also curve distally. They should, and that's it. Easy, done. Whereas when it comes to the second one, it might be a bit harder to tell left from right because you might not know because it's just got that cross-shaped pattern, right? And that's the tooth. Whoops. That's the tooth. It's got a cross shape in it, and you might not be able to tell which side is right, which side is left. So what you need to look at is that you look at the buccal side. It's more curved, it's more bulgy than the lingual side, and that's how you can tell. Also added to the fact that the roots curve distally. I keep saying this because it's quite common. It's so common that it's a way for you guys to be able to tell left from right. Okay? Because if this tooth has its roots curving distally, if you put it on the other side, they would be pointing nasally. Does that make sense? But the way you can tell them apart from each other is just by how rhomboidal they are, right? If the rhomboid shape is clearly like that, okay? If it's clearly a rhomboid or a diamond shape, then it's definitely a first molar. With the second one, it's not as obvious. With the second one, this is how it would start to look. This would be still as sharp, but then it would come here and it would kind of go like that, right? It becomes less of a diamond shape because this cusp, the disto-palatal cusp, starts to disappear bit by bit. Until you get to the third one that you guys won't be examining on, which it almost starts to look triangular because that's kind of disappeared, this cusp over here, right? So again, first molar, very diamond shaped. second one, it starts to lose its diamond shape. Let me just show you here. If you have a look at this side, this tooth, if it's focusing, right, you can see that this line goes there and then comes down and comes here. Do you see that rhomboid shape there? Whereas with the next one, this disto-palatal cusp started to disappear, so it's getting a little bit more triangular, because this cusp is starting to get smaller and smaller as you move further back in there. Okay? The other, how can you tell from right from left? You have a look at the inside. The first molar tooth has a cusp of carabelli. Not all of them do have that, but it makes a bit of a dent in the tooth, so it kind of sticks out. Even if it's not clear there, if it's clear, that's for sure it's a first molar. Second molars, to my knowledge, never have cusp of carabelli, right? That's the largest cusp there, which has the cusp of carabelli on it, and that would be the mesiopalatal cusp. The other way that you can tell left from right is that you can see when the teeth come together, right, the tip of the cusp on the buccal side point mesially. That's the general idea. When it comes to teeth, usually the tip of the cusp point towards the mesial side and the roots of them curve distally. So tip of the cusp, mesial, roots, distal. Okay? We can have a look on this side, you can see that is pointing more mesially. Okay? The other thing that can distinguish right from left is that little gang sign that goes like this, right? If you do this, I didn't think there was a gang sign, but I did a similar talk for GPS that joined you guys in year 2. I did that for them, and they were like, "This is our gang sign from now on." So we sometimes when we speak to each other, we just do that. But this, if you as nerdy as it gets. But with the upper teeth, if you imagine the upper teeth, upper molars have 3 roots, lower molars have 2 roots, right? With the upper one, this is how they're arranged. So you've got 2 of the roots on the buccal side, 1 of the roots on the palatal side. Okay, so that's how you can tell right from left as well. Because again, if you have the tooth on this side, and you take it to this side, it starts to point. The tip of the cusp starts to point on a distal, and the roots curve easily, so it wouldn't look natural. Okay, so are we clear on which side, how to tell the buccal side and how to tell left from right? You just have a look at the right. So if you have a look at this tooth right here, right? If I was able to hold the root of it, this incisal edge would make it plus with the root. So the root is like this. The incisal edge is like this. So if you're looking like that, it makes a plus. Does that make sense? Whereas with the lateral incisors, it doesn't make it plus because it's got a little tweak on the distal side of the incisal edge, just so that it can follow the roundness of the arch. Okay? Because if this was straight as well, it would stick out on this side. This side it's got a little bit of a tweak to it to join the canine and make the arch more round. So of the lower right central incisor, right? This would be the cusp of it, right? Whereas with the second, or with the lateral incisor, it still has that plus, but a little bit of a tweak at the end. Do you see that little tweak? And then there's a canine here just to follow the arch. And that's the midline. Okay? So that's the first incisor, second incisor. As soon as you hold the root of the tooth in your hand, you can see the tweak. And after this, when we go to the museum, I can show you exactly what I mean. It's so obvious. So you can now tell the cusp. So as soon as you can identify the tweak, you will know instantly whether it falls on the right side of the mouth or the left side of the mouth, because you know where the tweak would lead to the canine. Okay? And then with the central incisors, the only difference that they have left and right is on the roots. Okay? If you feel the roots, the distal side has a bit of a groove to it. Okay? And also the roots again tend to curve distally. Does that make sense? Okay? So that's all of the adult dentition out of the way. Now, have you guys any questions?
Go back to the premolars. How do you separate left and right?
With premolars, how do you separate left and right? Okay. There's a few rules. Okay? The buccal cusps are taller than the lingual cusps. both
Canine
of
fossa.
them. The buccal cusps
Why did it?
are
You
taller
just gave me a
than the
preview.
lingual and the palatal side. So the cusps on the inside are they're about the same.
Is he going to do the second now?
I'll show you the order.
This is a bit. Yeah, right. I was supposed to go out see my friends, and there were no trains, so I was
End of the
sad.
talk. Let me just, with regards to your question, we'll get back to it by the end of the session, because not everyone might have that question. But if you guys do, let me know at the end. We'll go through it definitely, so you know for sure how you can tell right from left. But just to cover the deciduous dentition as well, which is really easy, I'll quickly go over them. Deciduous dentition is basically the same, pretty much, as the adult dentition. The only differences they have are these, right? The first molars are like nothing we've seen in the adult dentition, okay? So all I say to people is this. If you have a look at baby teeth, right? If you recognize it, it's all good. You can tell where in the mouth it is, if it's a first molar, if it's a second molar, if it's a incisor or a canine, etc. They're all good and fine. The only difference they have is with the first molar, because the first molar is the only tooth that doesn't really get its own shape in the adult dentition. So the trick is this: if you have a look at the tooth in your hand, and you can definitely say for sure that it's a baby tooth because it's so tiny and there's just no way that could be in an adult's mouth, right? And they're usually plastic, but sometimes they might throw in a real one as well. But anyway, if you have a look at it and you don't recognize the shape, it's almost certainly a first molar, okay? Now, how can you tell if it's upper or lower, left or right? You have a look at the roots. If this weird tooth that you're looking at, that you don't recognize, has got two roots, it's a lower molar, lower first molar, and if it's got three roots, it's the upper first molar, okay? Now, how can you tell left from right? You just have a look at the bulgiest side. The bulgiest side is always on the buccal side. That's literally it. The bulgiest side is on the buccal side. So as soon as you start to see that, what's the word for it? Sorry?
You guys are shit.
I didn't really know that, and it's fine. As long as you can tell which side is the bulgiest side, and when we go to Gordon Museum, I'll show you exactly what I mean. That would be on the buccal side. So you can tell left from right, upper from lower, because of the number of roots, and that's it. For the first
Normal horny teenage girl.
guys, for the first,
And so much.
for the molars,
Put that video
upper, you
anywhere.
always have three
can
roots
edit
in
it,
this
don't worry.
configuration, right? For the lowers,
Cut that
you always have
YouTuber.
two roots curving distally, okay? First molars for baby teeth are really weird because they don't have their own kind of morphology. You don't need to know what the crown looks like. Obviously, when we go into Gordon Museum, you'll get to see them, but you don't really need to know the features of them because they're not asking you to make one. They just want you to detect it. And if you have a look at it, if you have a look at this, it's been really worn here. If I can just show you here, then that has to be on the buccal side. And if they've got, once you know the buccal side, you can tell which side is left and which side is right? Because of where the bulge is. See that bulge? Buccal side on the mesial, and then this bulge here, buccal side on the mesial. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Buccal side mesial. So that would tell you left or right, and upper or lower. You just have a look at the number of tooth. If it's number of roots, if it's two roots lower, three roots up. Okay. So that's adult dentition and deciduous dentition out the way. Okay. So, have you got any main questions? Have you got any main questions? Are you unclear about any of the teeth that I just mentioned?
Yeah, my hands up.
If you do still have questions, absolutely fine. We can. The lot of you that I'll get to in a sec. The lot of you that feel confident with it, you can either go to Gordon Museum or phone if you want. I'm making a little bit more resources on the teeth. So if I can just show you here.
Or there's a really good YouTube series that you can find.
Yeah. Actually, let's plug that in as well. So Rachel, I'm sure a lot of you. Guys, we're almost done. Rachel will be making YouTube videos so you can check those out. And I'll be sending some more resources from the
Like and
study
subscribe.
I'm in the study club group chat, so I have access there, and I'll be sending something similar, very similar to this.
Sorry, that was
If
really
you have
loud
a
in
look,
your ear. I
you
apologise.
can see that on one side,
I listen
it's
to
got
loud
the
music.
pronouncement lower, and the pronouncement is like the upper. So I'll make this, and I send it with some voices. You can either go to Google Museum, I'll join in a few minutes after I answer some individual questions,